so long since I felt your skin. It's been so long since I listened in to one of your shells and the song of your sea. Princess of the ocean, won't you come with me? Take my hand and come with me, darling, down to the shoreline. Take my hand and come with me, darling, down to the shoreline. Take my hand and come with me, darling, down to the shoreline.
Hello and welcome to the Nature Garden Podcast with me, Carl Steinson, and the Weekending team. It's your weekly wander along nature paths, riverbanks and beaches, through woods and wetlands, parks and gardens, and a chance to look at all things Northumbrian gardening and nature. In today's episode, the coronavirus has caused a lot of disruption to all of us, but where have all the flower shows gone? Tom Pattinson is here with some good news. You may have noticed more butterflies than ever in your garden, yard or favourite park, and you can help our understanding of butterflies by taking part in an exciting nationwide survey.
Taking part in the Big Butterfly Count gives you the opportunity to give back to nature if you sought solace in nature during lockdown. It's also a really great opportunity for you to help us, Butterfly Conservation, take the pulse of nature and find out what's happening to our butterfly populations across the UK.
And we'll be hearing more from Zoe later on in the show. Tom Cadwallander is here to tell us about the brilliant buzzard and the successive work to help them gain a firm winghold in the north of England. And we've got more top tips from Tom and some jobs for the week, all coming up on the Nature Garden Podcast.
The green deserted sand and the land coast on one. High time slept soup like an hour passing by, and the deep seas heave and the ghost of dead
I should say that if you hear some cheeping in the background, it's not just sound effects, it's the house martins that we've had to rescue from a complete disaster. But 3 of them are... You're doing fine, aren't you? It's been a miserable start to the year for horticulture in many ways, but the great bounce back is on as gardens open. But what of the village show? Here's Tom Pattinson, who reckons, well, the glass is not half empty, but half full and filling up. Over to you, Tom.
Flower shows. They've been a part of my adult life for as long as I can remember. My gardening mentor, all those years ago, introduced me to Walk with Flower Show. He was secretary and judge there, and he put me in as an apprentice judge. I began judging there every year and still go back judging each year, and other shows in the area, of course. It's held in the beautiful grounds of Walkworth Castle, made famous by Shakespeare, Henry IV, Harry Hotspur and all that, and it's under marquee. And what a glorious event it is, 3rd week in August each year. It's cancelled this year, just as Chelsea was cancelled way back in May. But Chelsea refused to be defeated. They said RHS members were going to broadcast online the spirit of Chelsea Flower Show. It's going virtual. I watched it for the whole week online, and by golly, enjoyed it. I felt as if I hadn't been cheated out of Chelsea Flower Show, much as I love to go there when it's live. It was also on BBC television, so millions saw it. So the RHS are repeating this week. This week, their Tatton Park Flower Show is online, virtual, all week. Today, this morning, I should have been at Howick Flower Show. Judy and I judge there every year. It's the first one in this area. A lovely little village show, good social contact and super event with good produce there as well. But of course that's cancelled too. So what do? No Walk with Show, no Glendale Show coming up shortly. Well, in a way, Chelsea showed us what to do, and I'm so delighted that Walk with Show are doing this as well. Their show, like all shows, is created over a year. As soon as one show's finished, they take a break for 2 or 3 weeks, then they have a chat about how the show went, etc., and they start planning for next year. And all shows are like this, so they suffered a big blow in the shows being closed this year. Walk with have decided we've been in existence for 161 years. Only 2 world wars and an outbreak of foot and mouth disease, I think it was way back in the 60s, have foiled us, but we're not going to be put off staging 149th show. And that's what they're doing. They're going virtual this year. If you tune in on 22nd of August at 10 a.m. to www.walkwithshow.co.uk, you will be welcomed into the virtual marquee of Walk with Show. I think that's marvellous. Until 2 years ago, I was president of that show and a judge at it, and it's in my being. So I'm so pleased that they're not being thwarted by this recent epidemic. They're going for it in a big way. Do you know, there's a lot of preparation goes into these shows. Whether you're secretary or a member of the committee, you have to book or get permissions to have the show on the site, whether it's an open field right next to Walk with Castle or whether it's a village hall. You have to organise judges, first aid, refreshments, teas, tables, etc., etc., and their meetings throughout the year for that one big day. So I'm so pleased when something like this occurs. Virtual is the way forward. In the past, they hadn't the technology to do this. Now we have. Let's make use of it. So what's happening at Walkwith? Well, in a nutshell, it's open only to the people within the residents of Walkwith Parish and Amble allotment holders. Also 3 WIs in that area. They put their entries in by the 31st of July, which is just about now, and they take images of them and send them in online. If they haven't got a computer or the wherewithal, the facilities to take images, there is a team organised by the working group of Walk with Show, which will come out and take images for you of your produce. You stage it wherever you want to, in the garage, in the greenhouse, outside in the open. They'll take the images and they'll send them in for you. You'll receive an exhibitor's number, etc., and you will be told the date and the time, by the way, that they are coming to meet you at your home to take your images, take the images of your produce. And social distancing, of course, will be observed. And then the big day on Saturday, the 22nd of August, www.walkwithshow.co.uk, virtual marquee is open to everyone worldwide. Well done, Walkwith. You might well be, to the best of my knowledge, the only show open this year in Northumberland, the North East, and the country in this way. Small show, that is, barring Chelsea and Datton Park.
I love this time of year and the fact that it's time for the Big Butterfly Count. It's a UK-wide survey aimed at helping us assess the health of our environment simply by counting the amount and type of butterflies and some day-flying moths that we see. It's really important work, and Dr. Zoe Randall from the Big Butterfly Count can tell us how we can all help butterfly conservation.
Hi Carl, it's Zoe Randall from Butterfly Conservation here, and I want to tell you about the Big Butterfly Count that we're currently running, and we'd love people to take part and get involved. It's really simple. All you need to do is visit the bigbutterflycount.org website and download the identification chart, and spend 15 minutes in a warm, sunny spot and count the different types and the numbers of the different butterflies that you see. The counts can be done anywhere. It can be done in your garden, in your local park, in a local churchyard, or even out on a countryside walk. And sightings can be logged via the bigbutterflycount.org website or via the Big Butterfly Count free smartphone app. Butterflies are really important indicators of the health of our wider environment, and by taking part you can help us take the pulse of nature. During lockdown, many people sought solace in their gardens and out on their daily exercise in the fresh air. We had a massive increase in inquiries about butterflies and moths during this time from people who were getting up close and personal with butterflies and moths quite often for the first time in their lives. This coincided with a warm, sunny spring, which enabled butterflies to emerge much earlier than usual. 90% of the UK's butterflies had emerged by the end of May this year, and that's the first time that's happened this century. We want people to take part in the Big Butterfly Count so we can see what effect this early emergence has had on butterfly numbers. A single brooded species, like the marbled white, which had a great year last year, will that still be on the wing? Or because it started so early, would it have finished early? Some species have had a fantastic first brood, so all being well, the second brood will be too. Small white, large white, small tortoiseshell and peacock have had bumper springs, so will the second brood be booming? If the second brood for small tortoiseshell is booming, that would be fantastic news, because unfortunately this butterfly has suffered a long-term decline of 79% since the 1970s. So if this butterfly can bounce back during this Big Butterfly Count time, then that would be absolutely fantastic. We really need your help to find out. Butterflies are beautiful in their own right, and to me they're really, really magical. The first brimstone butterfly I see in the spring signals to me that the winter's over, the spring's here and the summer's coming. Butterfly counting enables us to pause and slow down and is really, really beneficial for our mental health and well-being. So please take part in the Big Butterfly Count. All you need to do is go to the website, download the ID chart so you know what you're looking for, count the butterflies for 15 minutes in a warm, sunny spot, and then log your sightings on the bigbutterflycount.org website or on the free smartphone app, Big Butterfly Count. Thanks ever so much, and enjoy the butterflies.
Tom Pattinson is getting excited as horticulture makes a comeback, so let's share his excitement a little more for the flower show and the Classic Village show. And he has news of a special Wednesday challenge. Please do tell us more, Tom.
Wow, I've just received the printed schedule for Walkworth's virtual exhibition flower show on the 22nd of August, and my goodness, it feels and looks for all the world like a normal show schedule. It has all the different classes in. If they get a response from this, my goodness, it's going to be a tip-top show. There's a children's section for all of the classes, from years 1 and 2 to year 9 plus, based on environmental stuff around, just outside the home, photographs, writing, images, and it's quite something. This will be part of the virtual show on the 22nd of August. That is superb. There's poetry there, junior photography, junior floral art, flowers and vegetables. It's brilliant. And of course, there's the horticultural section, which I'm doing with my wife Judy. We will be doing that from the screen, from the images we received. And I must say, the whole of the show, there are going to be no prize monies at all, no trophies presented, no entry fee, of course. It's purely for the fun and the competitive element, but there will be a first, second and third designated in each case, as at the flower show. So there's open flower section here, open vegetable section, open fruit section. This is horticultural dahlias section. It's going through novices class for vegetables, floral art section, and so it goes on. There's handicrafts for others, art, photography, and of course cooking and baking. And you know, something that I really like, I think this is really well thought out. We have, leading up to the show itself, we have what is called the Wednesday Challenge. And this is quite smart, this. The group organising this for Walk with Flower Show, their working group, they decided we'll issue a challenge once a fortnight on a Wednesday. They started this on the 10th of June. So the next one was the 24th of June, 8th of July, and this week, of course, 22nd of July, Wednesdays, and then the final one's the 5th of August. And each challenge has 2 items, 2 themes. You have to take photographs, of course, and you send these photographs into their Facebook page, Walk With Show's Facebook page, and they are judged on the number of likes they get. So the one with the most likes is clearly the winner. No prizes, just the thrill of taking part. And listen to these sections. 10th of June was take a photograph of wildlife in the garden or viewed from your house. The second choice was create a bug hotel made from natural materials. 8th of July was photograph the most unusual find in your garden or house, and create a selfie using fruits and vegetables. This week's challenge is who has the most impressive compost heap, photograph it, send it in, or create a pattern made from pebbles. I think that is marvellous. What a lovely way to encourage a family to put entries in the main show on the 22nd of August, and all the family can enter. Amazing. I do like that. And you know, which brings me to flower shows. If you realised how many people actually place an entry, an exhibit in a flower show, nationally I'm talking about, the last time they did a survey on this, it was as little as 3% of the gardening population, people interested in gardening. So very few people actually bother to enter flower show competitions. Now, if you ask me how many people visit them, view them on television, or take an interest, wow, you just need to go to local shows like Walk With or Glendale, let alone Chelsea, which I say quietly to myself, this is like a bun fight, but it's a marvellous bun fight when you're trying to push in to get to the main exhibition gardens on the main, or anywhere at Chelsea. It is such... Oh, it's just a superb place to visit, the cutting edge of gardening there. And this is why people go to our local shows. What do they get there? Well, of course, there's refreshments, there's entertainment, there's generally music of some sort, occasionally dancing, fancy dress, good facilities for parking, etc. And of course, there's knowledge there. The top people in the area are showing off their skills at growing plants, flowers, vegetables, fruit, and the industrial section, making cakes, making wine, all sorts of stuff, the knitting, the crochet, and so it goes on. And here's the big bit, you can talk to them. These people who exhibit, they're only too happy to talk about how they produce the items they have produced. If it's a garment knitted, they'll tell you, explain it to you. If it's a flower and you haven't seen this variety before, the exhibitor, if he's around, which they generally are, they're proud of their stands, he or she will say to you, that's the new variety, and you've got something from it, you see. So long live the flower shows. Let's have them back next year. But hey, well done, Walk With. You deserve a good 149th show.
Last weekend I was watching a buzzard soaring high above the garden and surrounding fields. Its hover and glide looked almost effortless, but not so long ago they were quite a rare sight. I asked Tom Cadwallander from the British Trust for Ornithology if he could tell us a little bit more about the recovery of the beautiful buzzard.
When I was starting my birdwatching career as a lad in the late 60s, early 70s, common buzzard was hardly common. In fact, it was a bird of myth and legend, really. It certainly wasn't common at all. And this was the same across most of the country. Heavily persecuted as most birds of prey were, and indeed many are still these days, heavily persecuted. It was misguided, as it always. But yes, it's quite an interesting bird, actually. It's undergone quite a significant change in distribution and indeed population. It took to the late 1980s before I saw my first buzzard in Northumberland. And yes, they've snuck in since those kind of early days, and the population is quite robust now. We can see them almost anywhere, which is fantastic, really. And the kind of the change has been sort of at the base of the change in attitudes. Farmers generally see buzzards as their friends these days because they feed on rabbits largely, and with rabbit plagues around the place, which can have a big impact on some crops. Buzzards taking them out is seen as a good thing. So yes, they've managed to build up their population simply because they are beneficial, and people have seen the benefits to the farming environment. But it's an interesting bird. It's a really it's one of the biggest birds we're likely to see in the countryside in this part of the world. Big, broad wings with kind of the hands, if you like, which is the end of the flight feathers, creates this bit of a hand, and they're quite broad wings, and you see them flying on quite stiff wings. In Scotland, they're known as the tourist eagle because people can easily confuse them with the golden eagle, but you're not going to really, because golden eagle is a significantly bigger bird altogether, and you shouldn't confuse them. But if you see the underparts of a buzzard flying over, you'll see it's the adults have got barring on the upper breast, and the underparts are much paler. And the young birds are the upper breast is quite streaked. But if you see the underwing, it's quite pale in places. But it's also got these some of the bases, the carpal joints. They've got these dark patches, and they quite stand out quite a lot, and a lot of barring on the underwing as well. But what I found with common buzzards is there's an incredible variation, if you like, in plumages, from the real dark ones to kind of the real light ones, and anything in between. And you see these birds around, and it really catches you, even with an experienced eye. You can be caught out a little bit. You think you have to double take, but you kind of recognise it straight away. Well, once you've kind of got your head around it. And to see them on the ground, it's quite interesting because you do occasionally bump into them on the ground, and you'll see this kind of really big gorget, which is the kind of the upper breast, and it's quite heavily marked that. And when you see them on the ground, they're either loafing there, or they'll even might actually find them feeding on earthworms or voles or something, which is absolutely fascinating. And you get a good look at them at that point, but you can see how dark they are. Common buzzard is kind of quite common right across continental Europe as well. But in this country and in the UK, the population is sedentary. It's kind of is a resident bird, and indeed for lots of continental Europe that's the same. But in the north and west of Europe, and indeed right up into the Far East, these birds are really highly migratory, and we see them moving in huge numbers during the autumn, because they'll winter down in Africa. And sometimes they're known as steppe buzzards, but it's the same species. And the family of buzzards, though, the buteos, as the scientific name goes, there's about 27 species around the world, and they kind of all have a similar sort of habits. In North America, they're known as hawks. There's about 9 species of them. They're known as hawks. Typical Americans, they kind of call them a different name. And you'll remember the old Western movies where they see a circle of the common buzzards. The buzzards are circling over there of this kind of dead buffalo or a dead horse or a dead cowboy. But actually, they weren't buzzards. They were actually vultures, and probably turkey vultures at that, because we tend not to find buzzards in such big numbers unless they're on migration. We see small family groups at times, 4 or 5 in the group, but you never see them in any sort of larger number unless they're on migration and they are a particular group and they're travelling somewhere. But you never see them hunting and that or feeding in that particular way. So it's a kind of a complete fallacy when you see the Western movies and they say, the buzzards are circling. Doesn't happen that way, really. But we are seeing this great change in population. And in the springtime and even through into the summer, one of the best ways of kind of picking them up, you'll hear this mew call that they have, this mew, 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 as they make contact with each other in a kind of family group. But also, it's a part of their display, and you'll see them circling. These broad-winged birds. They love to thermal, kind of when the warm thermals are rising off the warmed land, and the hot air rises, and these birds will just fly on stiff wings, and they'll just circle and circle and circle, and they'll travel quite long distances, and that's part of their display as well. It's wonderful to see. So one of the great pleasures in going into the countryside these days is to see the recovery in the population of common buzzards. And they are really fantastic, and the farmers' friends, and they've really made a wonderful recovery from those heavily persecuted days back in the 60s and 70s, and we see them almost everywhere now. Brilliant birds. I love them.
I think it's time for some jobs for the week in the garden. Over to you, Tom.
Yes, it's jobs for the week time, Carl. Deep into storing, harvesting fruit and vegetables. I love growing veg and fruit, but top and tailing gooseberries or removing red currants and black currants from the strig is a bit time consuming, but we do it anyway. And some of them go into store, the deep freezer, and other ones will go towards jam. And of course, some are eaten fresh. It's good to have a good, decent crop of those. We're lifting broad beans and peas. I've lifted the whole plants now. And when you're lifting them, it's gauge when they're at their zenith, more or less, because peas especially can go a bit woody when they become crinkled, the outside and dry of the pod. They can get woody inside and they lose their sweetness, their taste. So about this time of year, I decide pulling the plug on it, lifting the whole of the crop and shelling them, of course. Oh, shelling. Put them all on the table, sit down there and shell them into bowls. But it has to be done. So we're doing that with the broad beans and with the peas. And a little thing actually, the tops of the plants, if you cut them off to be easier to harvest the pods from the broad beans and peas, then I put the tops into the composter, a good composting bin facility. But the roots, I dig them into the soil because they're little lumps on the roots, nodules they're called, and they are home to bacteria, and they are nitrogen fixing bacteria. They fix nitrogen in the air, in the soil, and it's returned to the plants. So they help to nourish the soil for next year. So I don't throw the roots away, I dig them in, or just leave them as they are and cultivate on top of them. I'm blanching as usual, blanching the vegetables before you put them in. That's, I'm sure you know, I mentioned this before. You get the peas or the beans and you've got them standing by. You boil the pan of water, you plunge them into the pan of water when it's boiling, and you leave them in for 2 or 3 minutes, in and out and straight into cold water. And this inhibits the enzymes that are present in the peas and beans, and it stops them turning colour, going off in store, so they store longer in the deep freeze. Moving on to the deadheading outside, something ornamental this time. Still doing it with all of the flowers in the garden. As soon as the flowers fade, take them off, and this encourages the plant to produce more. So of course it can produce seeds eventually. It's all about survival of that plant. It's looking to save its skin, reproduce the seed. Especially with roses, as soon as they're fading, deadhead down to the next nearest bud below the growth of the rose, and that will shoot and give you more roses. That continues throughout the summer, whether it's bedding plants or roses. I'm cutting these hedges at the moment, and my goodness, I don't mind the cutting, it's straightforward. But I have to confess, it leaves a heck of a lot of tidying up after all those hedge cuttings, and I can't deal with them, so some of them go into the grey bins, which go to the recycling unit, local facility, picked up every fortnight, but I also load up some of it into dumpy bags and take them to the recycling unit, green recycling, and that's where I get rid of it. Can't put all that stuff into my limited composting facility, so that's a joy to behold at the moment, cleaning up after cutting the hedges. I'm keeping a lookout for cabbage white butterfly. All brassicas that come on the wing, they'll be coming in shortly, those large white butterflies, and they'll be laying their clusters of eggs on the underside of the leaf. They will hatch out and defoliate, eat all the leaves if you don't stop them. Unfortunately, it has to be netting over, fine netting that stops the butterflies getting in. I'm also, sorry to say, need some rain. I'm looking at the apples, and the earliest apple to ripen here is the beautiful red one, sweet dessert apple called Discovery. It's about 2/3 of the size it should be. That's not too bad because we're still just about to leave July. It is ready generally by the end of August, so it's got 4 weeks to perk itself up, put a little bit more weight on. I'm helping a wee bit by giving it a bit of water, but we need rain for the apple crop. We need rain for everything, actually, and so we keep hoping that will happen. The onions, I've got the Kelsey onion strain. I just grow it for fun and for storage here because we have it during the winter. It stores well, but they're needing water as well at the moment. Oddly enough, the thing that doesn't need water is the sweet corn, the corn on the cob. I've got the corn on the cob, and they've got large cobs on at the moment. The tassel just on top of the cob, it's starting to fade, that sort of tassel-y substance. And you don't have to eat it as soon as that starts fading. You can, if they're big enough, but I prefer to leave them until the middle of August. I start harvesting them then, and they are delicious, just boiled gently or steamed with a knob of butter on them. What a starter they make to a meal. And I work it out this way, because they're members of the grass group, they're wind pollinated. I plant them in a block so they pollinate one another, and I have 16 plants in the block, 4x4, and they are each of those will give me 2 cobs. So I think 16 times 2, it has to be 32. It used to be, and this means that I've got, if we say have 2 each a week, that's 4. Twice a week is enough to have them, I suppose, and then those 4 twice a week, so you've got them from mid-August to mid-September, having 2 a week. Brilliant. Enjoy your gardening, folks.
Thanks, Tom, and don't forget, if you want to help butterflies even more, well, do check out the Big Butterfly Count, but also why not plant some cabbage outside of your netting and let the cabbage whites and others fill their boots on there. That can help, and of course, caterpillars are vital to others in the cycle of nature. You've been listening to gardener Tom Pattinson, birder Tom Cadwallander from the British Trust for Ornithology, Dr. Zoe Randall from the Big Butterfly Count. You can download a chart to help you identify butterflies at their website. I'm Carl Steinson, accompanied by 3 house martin chicks this week, tweeting away. Boy, are they cute. And please do check out the Nature Garden website. That's all the W's. Nature Garden Notebook. That's www.naturegardennotebook.com. Or you can also follow us on Twitter @Gardeners Radio and @Tom Cadwallander. Thanks for your time, and please do join us again next week. Bye for now.